Hello and welcome to the class. My name's Paddy. Today we're going to talk about developing our arguments in our body paragraphs for IELTS Writing Task 2. If you have any questions after you watch this class, remember that you can click on the chat icon at the top of your page here. Send us a message with any questions that you have. This is the second class of 2 classes. This video will last around 20 minutes. We will start by looking at the body paragraph structure for different essay types, and we will move on to some useful language we can use to connect our ideas. So by the end of this class, you will be more aware of how to structure your paragraphs and connect your ideas, make concessions, and give examples. During this video, there will be some questions for you to answer. You can find these below this video. I will tell you when you need to answer the next question, and I will give you about 10 or 15 seconds to do so. Okay, let's get started. So in class 1, we looked at the structure of a good body paragraph for our task 2 essay. I'd like to focus on opinion, discussion, and advantage and disadvantage essays. So that's essays where you have to look at 2 sides of an argument. And I'd like to see how we can apply that structure to this type of question. So let's read an example question. Some people believe that zoos are an important part of animal conservation, while others argue that they are cruel to animals and should be banned. Discuss both views and give your opinion. So this is a discussion essay. We will need to discuss both views here. That's explain both sides of the argument, and we also need to give our opinion, maybe in the conclusion, perhaps also in the introduction. So what are the 2 sides of the argument? Well, on one hand, we're saying zoos are positive and are good for animal conservation. And on the other hand, zoos can be cruel and should be banned. So that's a negative view of zoos. I have planned for this essay, and I've thought of some possible arguments for zoos and some possible arguments against zoos. Here is one of my arguments for zoos, and I've written it as a topic sentence to start my paragraph. Zoos increase the public's awareness of animals that are endangered. So in this paragraph, clearly, I'm going to argue that zoos can make people have more knowledge about animals that are at risk of going extinct. Now let's think about how I can support this topic sentence. I'm going to show you some ideas for sentences. So here are 4 ideas for things I could do to support this topic sentence. 3 of them are good, but 1 of them is not so good. Look at the first question below this video and choose the idea, A, B, C, or D, which would not be good to support this topic sentence. Choose the correct option now. So in this case, C is not a good idea to include to support this topic sentence. First of all, it says, give your opinion. We should save our opinion for the conclusion. The body paragraphs are about stating the arguments as statements, not your opinion. Give your opinion about how good zoos are at teaching people about endangered animals. Well, it's a good idea to explain why zoos are good at teaching people, but to give your opinion about how good they are and to stress that, maybe that's extra information which is not necessary here. So A, B, and D are good ideas to include. Let's imagine that we're going to include all of these ideas in our paragraph. So what would be a logical order for these ideas? We want to show progression of our argument and we want to support it clearly. So look at the next question below this video and choose a good order for ideas A, B, and D. Choose the correct option. A good order for these ideas would be B, D, and then A. Why? Well, let's look at the topic sentence. Zoos increase the public's awareness of animals that are endangered. The question for this side of the argument says zoos are an important part of animal conservation. So the topic sentence and the question are not obviously related. We need to show how this topic sentence supports the idea that zoos are good for animal conservation. To do this, we'd need to show how raising the public's awareness leads to better animal conservation. So sentence B explains why the topic sentence is true. So the topic sentence alone is never enough. It states the argument clearly, but it doesn't explain why it's true. Sentence B does that. Then sentence D connects the topic sentence to the question. It explains why people understanding more or knowing more about the animals helps with conservation in general. So it's that next step. Sentence A is an example. So here we would give an example that supports the argument we've just made. This is a cohesive argument. Maybe for idea A, we'd give an example of an animal which people have learned a lot about in zoos, and therefore that animal has had better conservation efforts. Now we're going to look at some useful language to connect the ideas we just saw. So here is the topic sentence again. Zoos increase the public's awareness of animals that are endangered. And I'm going to show you my sentences that draw from those ideas we saw in the previous slide. So if we remember in the previous slide, we now need to explain why visiting zoos can make a person understand more about endangered animals. Zoos often have a large amount of educational material that teaches the public about the animal's habitat and the dangers it faces from human activity. So this is explaining the process or the way that zoos can teach people about animals, especially endangered animals. D, we need to explain why people knowing more about the animals helps with conservation in general. People understand the importance of conservation projects because they've learnt about the habitats and the dangers that these animals face from the zoos. So now people understand why conservation is important. Then people donate more money to these projects. So here, step by step, I've shown the process that links people learning about the animals to the conservation projects receiving funding and being more able to help those animals. People see pandas in zoos and it makes them care about them more. Here I've provided an example of an animal that people learn about and see in zoos and they care about. And a result of this is that there is a large global effort to protect pandas, especially in China, for example. And this gets a lot of public support because people see them in zoos. So again, this is a cohesive argument because I've shown how the first point is true and I've shown how it links back to the question. These sentences are good, however, we are missing some linking phrases. A, B, C, D, and E are spaces where we could put linking phrases to connect these 6 sentences. The 6 sentences are the topic sentence and then these 5 sentences here. So we need to focus on the function of each sentence and the relationship between the sentences. So look at the next question below this video, and we're going to think about which sentence explains why the previous sentence is true. So of A, B, C, D, and E, which of those sentences explains why the previous one is true? Choose the correct option. Sentence A explains why the previous one is true. The topic sentence is zoos increase the public's awareness of animals that are endangered, and sentence A shows this process. Well, zoos have educational material, they teach the public about animals' habitats, for example, and they talk about the dangers that the animals face. So it justifies the first sentence. Which sentence starts an example? Look at the next question below this video and choose A, B, C, D, or E. Which sentence starts an example? Sentence D starts an example. People see pandas in zoos and it makes them care about them more. So here I'm providing an example of the process that I've just explained, this process of people learning about something to donating money to those conservation projects. Sentences B, C, and E all give a consequence of the previous sentence. They show what this leads to. They show what the result of this is. So A says that people learn about the animals. B, as a result, they understand the importance of conservation. C, as a result, people donate more money to these projects. And E, as a result of people seeing pandas in zoos, there is now a global effort to protect pandas. So a lot of your sentences will show the consequence of your argument that you've just made. Here we see some linking phrases. At the moment, our paragraph doesn't contain any linking phrases, so it's not clear how these arguments or how these sentences connect to each other. We're not going to score highly in that coherence and cohesion category. So look at the letters A, B, C, D, and E. Before these sentences, we need a linking phrase. So which of these linking phrases, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, could go before those sentences? Look at the next question below this video and choose the correct matches between the letters and the numbers. Sentence A gives a reason why the topic sentence is true. So it gives a reason. We can use number 3. This is because. So the connection would be zoos increase the public's awareness of animals that are endangered. This is because zoos often have a large amount of educational material. So I'm explaining why the topic sentence is true and connecting it with this is because. We could also say something like, this is due to the fact that. B. B shows the consequence or the result of something. So we could use number 2, as a result, or we could use number 4, therefore. So let's say as a result would work well here. So the previous sentence explains that people learn from zoos, and then B, as a result, people understand the importance of conservation projects. C. Now, some of you may have noticed that C is not actually a complete sentence. It doesn't contain a verb, it contains an ing verb form. This is because I have changed it into a noun phrase. We can use 5. This leads to. So just like number 2 and number 4, this expression shows the result or the consequence of something, but it's followed by a noun phrase. Okay? Sometimes we need to change the grammatical form to use certain linking expressions, and this is a good thing because it shows a variety of sentence structures. D, as we said before, starts an example. So we can use number 1. For instance. We could also say something like, for example. And E also gives the result of this example. So we could use to as a result or for, therefore. Let's use therefore here because we've already used as a result. So D says people see pandas in zoos and it makes them care about them more. Therefore, there is a large global effort to protect pandas, which gets a lot of public support. So now I'd like to look at a different question type. This is problem and solution essays. This is the type of question where you will be shown a problem and you need to identify the causes or maybe the consequences of it, and you need to propose a solution. So let's read our example question. These days, more and more people spend their days sitting at desks and less time doing physical activity. What problems are associated with this, and what solutions can you suggest? So this is a question about unhealthy lifestyles. So it talks about people spending their days sitting at desks and the fact that we're doing less time on physical activity. So we're not exercising enough. What problems are associated with this? So it's asking us for the consequences, not the causes, but the consequences. And as always, we need to suggest some solutions. As always, I have brainstormed some ideas in my plan for the problem paragraphs, and I've brainstormed some ideas for the solution paragraphs. I'm going to show you one of my ideas for the problems. People suffer from back problems. That's my topic sentence. It's a nice simple topic sentence. It's not very clear how this links to the question, but that's the purpose of my body paragraph, to explain what I mean by this. So next, I'm going to explain how spending your day sitting contributes to back problems. Okay, so this is linking the question to my topic sentence. I'm showing what I mean. Then I'm going to say why back problems are bad. This seems very obvious, but it's really good to emphasize why your point is so important. What are the consequences of back problems? Why does it make people's lives difficult or miserable? And of course, we can give an example. Remember, we don't have to give an example for everything we say, but if you can think of a good one, it might be a nice idea to include it. I'm going to show you my sentences, my ideas, and we'll see how we can connect those together. So for number 1, how spending your day sitting contributes to back problems. When people sit down, they are less likely to keep their back straight. Over time, their spine and muscles will change shape. So I'm explaining the process of how the issue in the question, spending your day sitting at desks, results in the problem presented in my topic sentence, people suffering from back problems. Okay, so it's a good idea to start with that problem or to start with that cause and then explain the process that connects it to the problem in the question. 2, I need to explain what the effects of back problems are and explain why they are so bad. 2, everyday tasks like standing up and bending over, things we do all the time, become miserable experiences. Okay, now I understand why having back problems is such a bad thing. And then an example showing this effect. Someone who has spent their life at a desk all day will spend their years of retirement going to the doctor for their back pain. Notice here that this is a hypothetical example. I'm not talking about an individual person that I know personally. Instead, I'm imagining a situation where someone might suffer from back problems and this might cause them to have an unhappy life. Now, we don't have any linking expressions here. There's no connection between the sentences. So let's think of some expressions we can use to connect our ideas. First of all, let's focus on number one. There are two sentences in number one. When people sit down, they are less likely to keep their back straight. And then the second sentence is, over time, their spine and muscles will change shape. I'd like you to think about the relationship between those two sentences. And so what word could go between the first purple sentence and the second purple sentence? Look at the next question below this video and choose a suitable linking phrase to go between these two sentences. Choose either because, so, for example, or however. Choose the correct option now. These two sentences have a cause and effect relationship. When people sit down, they are less likely to keep their back straight. Over time, their spine and muscles will change shape. So the second sentence is the result of the first one. Which of the expressions could we use to show a result? So. So the word between these two sentences should be so, or maybe as a result, or as a consequence. Now let's think about number two. Think about the connection between sentences 1 and sentence 2. What is the relationship there? What linking phrase could go at the start of sentence 2? Look at the next question below this video and choose a suitable linking phrase to start sentence 2 from this is because, as a result, despite this, whereas. Sentence 2 is, again, a consequence of the first sentence. So, over time, their muscles and spine will change shape. As a result, everyday tasks like standing up and bending over will become miserable experiences. So the correct answer here is as a result. We could also use the word so, but we already used that between the two sentences in number one. We don't want to repeat ourselves. That's a bad use of linking phrases. Finally, think about sentence number 3. What linking phrase could connect sentence 2 and sentence 3? Look at the next question below this video and choose the linking phrase which could start sentence 3. Sentence 3 could start with, for example. We couldn't use such as here because such as does not go at the start of a sentence. So our final paragraph will look like this. When people sit down, they are less likely to keep their back straight. So over time, their spine and muscles will change shape. As a result, everyday tasks like standing up or bending over become miserable experiences. So those linking phrases show the consequence of what we're talking about. For example, someone who has spent their life at a desk all day will spend their years of retirement going to the doctor for their back pain. So I've given an example here. It's very clear what the function of these sentences are and how they relate to each other. This is a good, cohesive, coherent argument. Right, that is the end of the class. If you have any questions now or later, remember you can click on that chat icon at the top of your screen to send us a message with any questions. Now it's time to do the practice activities and extra training on this topic. Thank you for listening.